How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to another edition of the Stupid Questions podcast. This is a really special one for me for a number of reasons that I'm sure you'll start to figure out once you listen to it, but is with Belinda Granger. She is a legend in the sport of herself and has been involved in many ways through the Challenge Foundation, through these Phoenix camps that she talks about, and so many other things of being a professional. Yeah, she's just a gem, really awesome conversation. She was super kind and shared from the heart with a number of different things about her personal and family life, obviously triathlon and things in and around that surround those topics. So thank you so much for Belinda for coming on, and I hope you guys really enjoy this conversation with Belinda Granger.
I get home
No
today
worries.
from the gym and I've got plenty of time. I'm all ready to go. And I opened our fridge to put some food in because I did some shopping and the light didn't go on. I'm thinking, oh shit, don't tell me our fridge is broken on us.
Mhm.
I realized very quickly that the electricity was gone. So we had no electricity in the house. I'm like, shit, what's happening? It was fine this morning. I'm
Yeah.
thinking, oh, no internet. God, I've got this podcast. Ran down the street, saw that they were doing some work. They said, sorry, the electricity is going to be out till 3:30 this afternoon. I'm like, well, there's been no letter. No, well, that's Australia Post's fault. They should have told you. I said, well, they didn't.
Yeah.
So anyway, I've hooked up the computer to my phone, and it seems to be great. But God,
Yeah.
I'll be devastated if something happens. But it shouldn't happen. But this is the story
Yeah.
of my life right now. It's day one thing
No,
after.
it's all good. Yeah. Well, it's 10 a.m. for you too. Like you already had your morning session and got
Morning
some
session
emails done,
done.
I'm sure.
Yes, yep. So yeah, we're pretty good. But I wanted to, because I knew it was going to be video. I wanted to not have wet hair and blow dry. I can't do anything. So anyway,
No, it's all good.
no
I
big
literally
deal.
just got out of the pool myself, so I've still got little raccoon eyes going on here. But
Well, what
yeah,
time is it for you?
it is 5 p.m.
Okay, so yeah, the day,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
day
yeah,
before.
yeah,
So you're on
yeah.
Thursday. Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
you're ahead in the future.
I love it always.
Yeah. Well, hey, first off, just thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're
Oh,
super
no
busy, you got a
problem.
lot going on, so really appreciate you jumping on. Thanks for being here.
Look, no problem. I don't. I tend not to do that many podcasts. I used to do them a lot back in the day, and then I don't know, life just got in the way. And
Yeah.
but recently, yeah, I really enjoy talking to people, particularly new people like yourself,
Yeah,
and
thank you.
talking about subjects that are exceptionally close to my heart. So
Mm.
it's a good thing.
Yeah, good deal. Sweet. Well, my first question for you is an introspective question, and that is, who is Belinda?
Oh, gee whiz. That's actually probably one of the hardest questions I've ever been asked, and to do it straight from the gun. Who is Belinda? Belinda is someone that is extremely passionate about what she does, and has never taken her job for granted,
Mm.
or has never taken any opportunities that have come her way for granted. I love what I do. I think I'm one of these rare people in the world that actually got to make up their job description. So a lot of people don't realize that when I started working for ChallengeFamily, Challenge wanted me to work for them, and they didn't actually have a job for me, but they
Mm.
sent me home and said, "You make up the job for you that you want to do, and you'll do that." And I don't think there's many people in the world that get that opportunity. So I'm doing what I love to do, which is helping people. I'm extremely passionate about professional triathlon and keeping as many professional triathletes in a job as possible. And yeah, I'd like to think that I'm like the mother hen of triathlon for the
Mm.
professional men and women. That's just one part of me. Another part of me is obviously I'm a wife. I'm a friend. I'm a
Mm.
puppy mum, a doggy mum. Um,
Mhm.
I love life. I love being fit. I love being healthy. It is such a huge part of my life. Uh, I'm routine oriented, so I love routine. When I'm out of routine, I'm not a particularly nice person to be
Yep,
around.
I've been there. Yeah.
Oh, and I think and I think the funny thing is when you've been an athlete, regardless of whether you're a professional athlete or an age group athlete, I think when you're an athlete, so someone that likes to keep themselves fit and healthy, someone that is competitive, has a competitive drive, you're attracted to the same sort of personality, same sort of people. And I know all of my friends, and I have got an incredible, tight knit group of girlfriends here, and we're all very, very similar. And I don't know what I'd do without them. So when
Mm.
I say I'm a friend, I think it's a very important part of me. I love my friends dearly, and I love being around them. And yeah, I'm also a sister. I've got one sister, and she's exceptionally important to me as well. And I think that's it. I'm sure, as this goes on, I'll think, oh, I should have said that and I should have said
Now,
that.
you
But
can interrupt me at any time and throw
at any
stuff
time,
in. That'd be totally
basically,
fine.
in a nutshell, that's me. But I'm a person that will go out of my way and then some to help anyone in the sport of triathlon, not just triathlon, anyone in sport. I don't know if you know, but I also have this job that I work for the Phoenix Foundation, Phoenix Futures Camps,
Hmm.
and we take on young up and coming athletes in an array of different sports, and that's probably the most satisfying, rewarding job that I've ever had. And again, same sort of deal, just helping and assisting young athletes live their dream. And for me, that's incredibly important.
Mm. Tell me a little bit about what does it mean to be rewarding when you work with these young kids? I mean, I'm sure you have quite a bit of stories of moments that have just like really turned into gems for you.
Honestly, I literally get goosebumps. So we just put a reel up, or the Phoenix Foundation just put a reel up, and it's of all the athletes that we've taken through these camps over the years, and where they are now. And some of them are truly, they are at the top of their game. They are world
Mm.
class. They're our next Olympians. They're breaking records in their chosen sports, and to see these, and they're still kids in my eyes. I mean, I'm 54 now, and uh,
Mhm.
a lot of these athletes are in their late teens, early 20s now, and they are living their dream, and they're doing it so incredibly well. And just to watch what they're achieving, and know that I had a tiny, tiny little part in that, in helping them realize what it takes, what it means to be a professional athlete in their chosen sport. It is, without a doubt, the most rewarding feeling ever. I don't know if I'll ever quite get used to it,
Mm.
and I feel incredibly lucky to be given the opportunity to be able to do such a wonderful thing.
Yeah. Well, that really speaks to, I think, one of the key pieces of who you are that you spoke to in the beginning about being sort of a mother hen, which
Yep,
I really
yeah,
appreciate. My mother is definitely the mother hen, was friends with all of my friends, just very energetic, outgoing. You guys seem to have some of that in common. So I'm curious for
yeah.
that character trait and just that personality that you have that is so bright, bubbly, and able to just like bring people in. Where does that come from? Is that nature? Is that nurture?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And look, the first thing I do is look at my parents. Obviously, you are a product of your society, a product of your upbringing. I truly believe that. I have incredible parents. My mum and dad were very sporty when they were young, and they encouraged me to be very sporty. And I think the most important thing that they taught me is that, yes, I'm competitive by nature. I don't know if that was them or whether I was actually born with that trait, but
Hmm.
I compare myself to my sister, who was also a very talented sports person when she was younger, but she was not competitive at all. That is the sole difference between the two of us as sisters. Uh, and where that came from, I don't know. But one thing that my mum and dad did teach me from very early on was there is nothing wrong with being incredibly competitive, but just also be respectful of your competition at all times, and never let the competition or the competitive side of you take control of everything. I mean, it's important. Obviously, as an athlete, you want to win, you want to be the best you can be, but not at the expense of others. So I
Mm.
think that was something they installed at me from a very young age, and something that I've carried with me for a long time, forever, and I still do. And I think that's, I remember back when I used to be racing on the race course, and I think there's that one clip. I remember when Chrissy Wellington in Kona, when she got those flat tires, and I think Dee Dee Grisbauer and I were the first ones to actually catch her while she was on the side of the road.
Mhm.
And I remember almost feeling guilty that I didn't stop and give her some help, because that's the sort of, even though my husband's after, it's like, no, 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 you're a competitor, you were there to race. But I've never really spoken about this to anyone apart from my
Mm.
close friends, that because she was also a training partner of mine at the time, and the guilt I felt because I didn't stop and help her. um, I carried that for quite a while. And I know Rebecca Keat, who's also a good friend of mine, she did end up stopping and throwing her a gas cylinder, which basically helped Chrissy get back in the race and win the race. And
Mm.
I remember thinking for a long time, that should have been me. She was my training partner. Why didn't I help her? And I almost felt like the competitiveness of me took
Took
over that
over.
day. Is that a bad thing? I mean, there'll be 50% of people say, no, you did the right thing. You were racing a world championship. There'll be others that say, oh, maybe she should have stopped and helped. It's irrelevant. It was a long time ago. But I remember that day thinking, next time I'm not going to do that. I am going to help my fellow competitors, and I've done it before. I think there'd been a couple of races after that where I actually slowed down and helped. I remember talking a girlfriend of mine who was we were racing together, and she was suffering badly, and I remember slowing down and just pulling her through. And we ended up both finishing really well that day. But she came up to me at the end and said, if it wasn't for those words that you said in my head,
Mm.
I think I would have pulled out. So I think it's just been me forever. I like helping people. All of my friends that I'm with now, others are very similar. They're not takers, they're all givers. And I think definitely it was something that my parents installed in me from a very, very young age, is to be aware of people around you and help when they need help.
Mm. Those are beautiful stories. Thanks for sharing that. And I'm curious to know, with the conglomerate of these different character traits and pieces of who you are, would you say that when you look at yourself as a total, are you more like your mom or more like your dad?
Oh, that's a good one. And I can answer this almost immediately. I'm definitely more like my mum. And I think that is why for a long time when I was younger, we clashed a lot. So, obviously throughout my teens and even into my early 20s, even though my mum and I love each other dearly, we clashed with personality because I think we were too closely matched. Whereas I got on a lot closer to my dad. I was a lot closer to my dad, got on with him a lot better. My sister is more like my dad. But my mum is very competitive by nature. And she was also a very good swimmer back in the day, and then obviously took up diving and was very competitive at that as well. My dad was also very competitive. He was a rugby union player and loved it, but I think he loved the camaraderie and the team, like being part of a team, more than he actually loved
Sure.
to win. Whereas I was a little bit more like mum in that, I was very competitive. I wanted, nothing was ever good enough. I always thought I could do better. I'd get to the end of the race and I'd never quite be satisfied, thinking I could have given it a little bit more. And I look at my mum, and that's how she is in every facet of life. So, obviously I'm a lot older and wiser now. So mum and I, we laugh about it a lot, but I think definitely closer to my mum in personality traits than I am
Mm-hmm.
to my dad. But I like to think of it now as a nice mix of both.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that too, because it's really fascinating to me that you shared a little bit, when you started to get connected with your mom and dad in a different way, some of that wisdom, age, and experience. Something I'm really fascinated with is this concept that happens to, I don't want to say everyone, because some people are still estranged, and you see like the children and the parents kind of have this just disgruntled relationship for so long. So for you, when or how did it happen that you started to see them less as like, oh, this is mom and dad, on the pedestal, that they're kind of over there, and you kind of saw them eye to eye as like, oh, they're another human. They were a kid at one point.
Yeah, it's interesting. I look back now, I distinctly remember my mum's 40th birthday. It was a
Hmm.
massive big deal. And I remember thinking, oh, wow, mum's 40. She's so old now.
Yeah.
And And, I remember when I turned 40, I thought I was still a spring chicken.
Hmm.
And it's interesting. Definitely back then, I thought that, when my mum turned 40, they were just my parents and they were old and they did old people's things. And it's only now that I look back that I think, well, they were actually pretty cool. I remember at my mum's 40th, we were all in this beautiful I don't even know what it was, along this creek, and my mum made this grand entrance by coming in a canoe. It was a two-person canoe, and one of her best friends was like actually paddling, and she was in the back of this canoe with all these streamers and made this grand entrance into it. And I think back now and I think, shit, that was pretty cool, mum. But at the time, all I could think of was, oh my gosh, my mum's 40, she's so old. And it's
Hmm.
only when you look back now as an older person yourself that you think, I had such an incredible childhood. We used to go camping every weekend. We had a fantastic community around us, group of people around us. We were all sporty. Mum and dad spent most of my childhood driving me to different sports, whether it be t-ball, netball, water polo, athletics, swimming, because I was one of these people that I got bored really quickly. So every every couple of months I wanted to try something different. Tennis 1 month, and then, netball the next, and then athletics. Then gymnastics was the big one. Gymnastics was, and
Mm.
that was 4 days a week. So
Yeah. Well.
I think I was really lucky that, that my mum and dad loved me being active, and wanted me to be active. But when did when did we become best friends? Because that's what we are now. I would
Mm.
say it was when I actually turned 40. So I reckon either late 30s, early 40s was when I think I really had such a strong connection. I mean, I've always had a strong connection with my family. There's only the four of us. There's only my mum and dad, and obviously myself and my sister Danielle. And we've always been incredibly close. But probably when I turned 40 was when I could really, I wanted to go out to dinner with mum and dad. I wanted to legitimately spend time with them. This Christmas, we actually, for the first time, we've rented this insane property down near Byron Bay, and it's just going to be the six of us going. So my husband, also my sister's partner, and even though it's December, it's months and months and months away. We can't stop talking about it. We're
Oh,
all
that's
so
so cool.
excited to do it. And if you had have asked me that 20 years ago, there's no way I'd be spending Christmas, down in the hinterland of Byron with my parents. So
Yeah.
yeah, it is funny how things change, but I couldn't think of anyone that I'd rather spend Christmas with. And yeah, I love my family
Mm.
dearly.
Oh, that's such a gift and joy to be able to have those moments as we get older.
Mm.
So I'm 32, and it probably was around 26 or 27 when I started to kind of see my mom for who she
She
was as
was,
an
or she is. Yep.
individual. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and really started to realize, oh man, she was a little kid too, and she went through these things, and
Oh,
what do all parents, if I would say 90% of all parents want to better their lives for their kids. But to have your kid grow up, and then for me to get to a point where I was able to kind of circle back on some of the moments that I hated, as a kid, thinking, oh, this is so dumb, or oh, you're so crazy, mom, or this is useless. Getting to thank her for those moments has been probably some of the closest bonding moments we've been able to kind of share with each
yeah,
other.
absolutely.
And I wish that everybody could experience that from as young age as possible. But sometimes you have to get an education of the School of Hard Knocks to figure out, oh, my parents actually knew a little bit of what they were talking about.
Well, I think about my mum, as I said, having a 40th birthday and having, at that particular point in time, two daughters. She was a full-time teacher. My dad was a full-time engineer. And what the things that they were doing at that age I look back now, and there's no way I was doing. I think I was quite successful at 40, but when I look at what they achieved at that same age and the responsibilities they had on top of that, it's
Mm,
pretty damn impressive. And I think sometimes it's, as you said, when you're a child and all, you tend to have that that focus just on yourself, and everything's so unfair. And I remember the
mm.
funniest story for me is when I was very young, and this is probably where my mum and I clashed the most. All of my friends, this is primary school, all of
Oh,
my
wow.
friends were getting their ears pierced. My mum, no, Belinda, sorry, you are not getting your ears pierced till you're 16. I'm like, 16? I mean, when I was in primary school, 16 was year 10 at high school. I'm like, I'm not
Yeah.
waiting that long. This is insane. And I just said, you're so horrible. You're doing this on purpose just to hurt me. I'm going to be the odd one out, the only one without earrings. Anyway, she did cave a little, and I was able to get them done when I turned 15. But I was such a cunning kid, and I really was a handful back in the day. Not anymore.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
I remember she distinctly said you can go down to the hairdressers, because that's where you got your ears pierced back in the day, and you can get your ears pierced. But she never told me how many times. So I went down and I got 4. I got 2 sets of earrings, and just to say, ha.
Stick it
And
to the man.
I remember coming home, and she's like, "What have you done?" I said, "You could get your ears pierced." I said, "Oh, no, you never. You said I could get my ears pierced, but you never said how many times." So, that was me cheating the system. So
Yeah.
I was a bit of a brat of a kid. Particularly when it came to my mum, I was constantly trying to find ways to make her angry.
Yeah.
And we do. I mean, we laugh about it now, and that's the greatest thing about growing up. And now we
Hmm.
can look back and have a good chuckle about it.
Yeah, for sure. So I have read that you have said in the past that when you were making the decision to kind of take triathlon seriously and this be your professional career, you were a little
Mm.
bit trepidatious in how your parents would support you. And you said that they ended up being very supportive. So I'd love to hear that story. But the question I'm really curious to know is, had they not been supportive at that time, how do you think that would have changed your path and
Oh,
direction?
that's interesting. So first up, yes, I remember I'd finished university. I went to university and became a phys ed teacher, and I did teach phys ed in school for 12 years. I was also competing at the same time, and I fell into triathlon by accident, to be honest. I was, I think, in the second year of university, and I looked in the mirror one day and I did not like what I saw. I just saw a very unhealthy, unfit individual, and I'd never been like that my entire life. And I think first 2 years at uni just got away from me. I also discovered, going out and nightlife. I was a bit of a late bloomer when it came to that, and I liked it. But then I distinctly remember waking up one day and just looking at myself and thinking, I do not like what I'm seeing right now.
Hmm.
And I thought, I need to find something that I can really wrap my arms around, that's going to make me want to get out of bed in the morning, and lead a fit and healthy lifestyle, which I'd done my entire life. And triathlon was that sport. So I only really took it up in the beginning just to get my life back on track, to get fit and healthy. I never thought that I would be good at it. I'd never ridden a bike before. I'd swum, of course, and I'd run my entire life, but I'd never ridden a bike. And I loved it. I fell in love with it from day dot. And then I met my now husband, Justin, who actually was competing at quite a high level at that stage. And he said, you could actually be really good at this. And if you wanted to, I think you could race professionally. And I remember laughing at him thinking, don't be ridiculous. I'm, 22 years of age. It's gone. That ship sailed. And he said, no. The great thing about triathlon is it's an older person's sport. And he was right. And I remember when I told Mum that I was going to be giving up teaching. And she was a teacher for many, many years, so she loved that I'd followed her footsteps.
Yeah.
And I thought, she's going to hate this. She's going to give me every reason not to do it. But she said, no, this is amazing. Follow your dreams. You should do it. You'll get to travel the world. And that's all my mum ever wanted me to do, is to create new experiences for myself, to meet new people, to travel to new places, to experience new situations. And she knew that this sport was my way of doing it. So, and they loved it because it gave them an excuse to come and travel the world with me as well. And they became my greatest advocates, and they traveled the world with me. My dad became my stats man. He knew all my competition. If he was here now, he could rattle off my results way better than I could. I know what races I won, but I couldn't tell you times or positions half the time. He knows it all. And so they were incredibly supportive. And we actually, for the first probably 5 or 6 years, they traveled to nearly all of my races around the world with me. They traveled to Roth with me at least 10 times. It's crazy. So rolling back to the second part of that question, if they hadn't have, I would have proved them wrong, because that was the sort of stubborn mule I was. I would have said, well, I'm doing it anyway, and you're going to be eating your words.
Yeah. Do you think it helped you be more successful having that support, or are you driven enough that you think like you still would have figured it out?
Look, I still think I would have figured it out. It wouldn't have been as much fun. I did have a good team around me. Obviously, my boyfriend at the time, my husband now, but my boyfriend at the time, Justin, was my biggest supporter, and he was incredible to have. But definitely, when you go to a race and you've got your mum and dad cheering on course. I remember once, I think it was my second year at Roth or third year at Roth. I remember mum and dad being there as I got off the bike and seeing their faces and hearing them cheering me on and calling my name when you're, running out to start the marathon. There's no better feeling. And just looking at my dad, when you cross the finish line, regardless of whether I won or not, but obviously, if I just won a race, and to see the look on my dad's face, how proud he was, there's nothing like it. And I got to experience that many, many times. So yes, I still think I would have been as successful as I was, and I would have enjoyed the process. But there's no doubt that it was even more special because I was able to share it with my parents.
Yeah, a deeper level of joy. So the coolest thing, I'll just share really quick to relate a little bit. So I got to race at Worlds this year for 70.3 back in just a few months ago in New Zealand, and had the opportunity to have my mom come, and that was her first international trip ever.
No way.
And so she was there, and she thought, for all intents and purposes, she thought that I was the fastest man alive, and she was just telling everybody, oh, my son's going to, so, but it was such a cool experience for me to come out of the water, which I already was like having such a beautiful day. I don't know if you swam there before, but it's just like clear all the way down.
New Zealand's one of my favorite countries in the world. I absolutely adore it. Love it.
I was literally crying as I was swimming because it felt good. It was so beautiful. And I come out and see my mom go out on the bike, come back. She's there again and she's screaming. And yeah, that was just one of the coolest feelings that you can have. Like, I don't know if there is a better feeling. Maybe one day I don't know, having kids or who knows what could happen. But yeah, that
Yeah.
was to this point in my life, that's been one of the greatest
You're dead
joys, I'd
right, and
say.
yet just to see their face and to see how proud,
Hmm.
and I can only imagine how it does feel for them as well. You know, what I mean, they brought you up,
Yeah.
they created you. You know, you are a product of
Mm.
them, and then for them
Yeah.
to see you doing such incredible things, whether you're racing as an age group or as a professional athlete, I don't think it makes an ounce of difference. To be honest, you're still
Mm.
doing the same thing, and achieving the same goal, and that's to get across that finish line. And I think it must be such a special thing. You know, my dad now, he's 85, and he's you know, he's had 2 knee replacements, he's had a hip replacement. He finds it hard to move around, and it's difficult for me at times to see him like this, because he was the one that I used to run with as a kid. He was the one that took me on my first 5K run. He was the one that took
Mm.
me on my first fun run. So I hear he had a huge role to play in me getting into sport in general, in particular running, and to see him now struggling a bit. But you know, I go and see them regularly because they don't. I live in Noosa, they live at Peregian Beach. It's about 15-20 minute drive, so I'm
Mhm.
often over there. And I'll go over there some days, and he'll be on the computer. He goes, "Oh, guess what? He goes, I just YouTubed you. I just YouTubed Roth 2004," and I'm He's, he's like, "Did you know that, Belinda, you can find you know how many videos there are on you on YouTube?" I said, "No, Dad, I haven't looked,
Oh,
but
that's so
I'm
cool.
sure you know." But you
Yeah.
know, again, he's still living the dream. And I've been
Hmm.
retired since 2015, but he still every now and again likes to go back and see what his little girl did, and you know that makes me feel really good, and
Mm.
proud that
Mm.
we could share that together.
So the greatest gift I think that a woman can have growing up is to know that her father loves her.
Yeah, absolutely. And my dad, I still call him my daddy. My gosh, my dad is incredibly special to me.
Mm.
Yeah, he's such a good man, and I know, you know, obviously he's 85, and even as his little girl now, I want him to live forever, and I
Mm.
still refuse to think of anything otherwise. I think we all think that our parents are invincible, and when you
Mm.
start to see, at my age, when you start to see little cracks start to develop, it's you know, reality starts to set in, and I want to rewind and go back to and do it all
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, that's definitely a different season of life. I've
Mm,
interviewed different people across the spectrum from just getting the sport and the sport, at a point in life when they're, having kids and post kids, empty nest. So for you in this season of life, like how is that? Like you said, obviously it's a bit difficult, but does it change the way that you perceive life and just like where you are and the age that you are and how you want to live the rest of your remaining time on this earth?
yeah, that's it's something that I've. It's so interesting that you bring that up right now, because it is definitely something that I've only just started questioning since the beginning of this year, and for a variety of reasons. Obviously, um, when my dad turns 85. In November, I turn 55. So that's how it works. So I think there's only I think there's a handful of days in between our birthdays. And seeing him now, as I said, he's less mobile than he used to be. And then my mum, unfortunately, has just come out of hospital. She's had a pretty big scare. It's the first time that something like that's happened to my mum. My mum's been invincible. While my dad's
Mm.
had to get, knees replaced, hips replaced, my mum's been rock solid. So to now have her, she was in hospital for 4 nights. I think the last time she was in hospital was when she gave birth to my sister, which is,
Wow.
my sister's 52. So
Yeah.
that was a bit of a reality call and a bit of a wake up call. And I do spend a lot of time overseas. I'm about to go in just under 2 weeks' time to Europe again for 2 months. And I never used to question it. So what? That's just what I do. I go over there for 2 months. I work all the races. I come home, and then I go to Europe again for another month
Mm.
towards the end of the year. And I never questioned that. But now I'm starting to think, you know what? Can I afford to be overseas for that amount of time with my parents at the age they are and with things happening that are out of all of our control? And I actually think that for next year, I will start to just think, okay, I'm just going to go over for the races and come back. I'm not going to base myself in Europe, just because time is precious and life is precious. And I want to be able to spend as much time as possible with my mum and dad. And yeah, it's literally, this is the first year that my head's been thinking like this.
Mm.
It's because every other year I just refuse to let it be part of the
Real.
equation.
Yeah. Yeah, it becomes a part of reality. Yeah, it
Yeah.
reminds me. So I'll just tell this short story because I think it speaks to what you're talking about and the importance of it. Unfortunately, have had death touch my family in a number of ways since a relatively young age. And there's obviously a ton of negatives with that, but the positives are I've realized, well, you never know when today
Yeah.
may be the last day. And you really don't, like, life is so precious. For example, almost 3 years ago now, um, I was spending Christmas with my wife's family. And so I came from a family where pretty broken up across the US. We didn't do whole lot of reunions. My wife's family, it's like 10 cousins and, aunts and uncles, and they all get together and it's like this
Love
big
it.
affair. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I loved that when I got involved with her family. In fact, when we broke up for all of like a week, the biggest thing I think that I was mourning was like the fact that I was losing this entire
You lost that
family that I
family.
just,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Oh,
So anyway, we did get married, and we've been married almost 8 years. And so a few years ago, I was spending Christmas with her family, and her grandfather was 85. Now this man was fit and could barefoot ski, at
wow.
80, 85, just
Yeah.
like farming man, grew up on a dairy farm, then had his own cattle farm and was a surgeon, just really out of this world guy. And so he had actually invested quite a bit of money, like in one of my startups when I was just fresh out of college, like asked him for money. He ran me through the ringer a little bit. He gave me the money. Just a very awesome guy. Well, that business ended up collapsing due to COVID and some other things, and had to tie up those ends. But there was a part of me for a long time that was just like, oh man, like I feel like I burned his cash, and I told him that several times. But he was always saying like, hey, like that was your education. I was happy to supply some of that education, and he was just a real mentor in that way. Well, this Christmas, we were spending some time with him, and the day before, it was just this really cool experience. One of these girls that lived in the valley where they live had a red-tailed hawk, and or falcon, excuse me, and she did falconry, so she could like send it off when it back. Anyway, we had this really special day where we got to interact with this falcon, and he's like holding it, and I got a really cool video of him. Just one of the coolest videos ever. I have to send it to you if you care to see it. So
yeah,
neat.
I'd love it.
But that evening, was supposed to go back on the farm to go pick something up from him, and we didn't. And I should back up just a little bit. Right before we left the house that afternoon to go run some errands before we were going to come back, I felt like telling him just one more time, like, hey, like, just want to say, like, thank you so much for all you've done for me.
Yeah.
And there was a
Yeah.
group of people, and truthfully, like, I was a little embarrassed to like trying to approach him in that setting. For whatever reason, I didn't say it. Well, we left. And that evening didn't end up coming back until like midnight, and he had died in like this tragic tractor accident.
Oh
And
gosh.
and it was just like it hit me square in the eyes because like I had lost my father even when I was relatively young, and I experienced that. And from this moment, and I don't think that we called him Pop Up. I don't think that he would have been any more like upset. He was in a real good place, like really loved the life that he was living and went quickly in the way that he did. But I just realized from that moment on, like, I am never going to let these moments go by again
No.
without telling people that, because you truly never know. Like, it can
No.
be, life is just so valuable and so fragile. Yeah. So, not to
Oh, I
totally
can't believe
dumb
that.
down the conversation.
No, but as you said, I think particularly when you have a great relationship with your parents, you put them up on a pedestal, and they are Superman and Superwoman. And
Mm-hmm.
particularly with my parents, where they've always taught me, no excuses, get stuck, get shit done, just do it. Don't
Yeah.
procrastinate. Don't make excuses. Particularly when it came to work ethic and my sporting career. And they've always been like that. And so I think of them as being invincible. And
Mm.
as I said, it's only since we've started to see a few cracks as they've gotten older that you start to see that they are fragile, just like every other human being on this planet, and that uh, they're not going to be here forever. And I
Yeah.
still, I almost chuckle when I say that, because I don't know if I truly I actually do believe it. I think there's
Yeah.
still that part of me, that little girl that has this ideal that your parents live forever, and
Yeah.
we know they don't. So.
Mm-hmm.
And particularly when, like you said about your grandpop, he was still doing things that a 50-year-old would do.
Yeah. It's
It's
totally
hard to
wild.
see him as someone that's in his 80s or 90s, or all you know is that this is this incredible man that's done so much for you, and
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't supposed to be his time to go. And I just, yeah, now with this scare with my mum, which we are still waiting for the results on, and I
Mm-hmm.
think regardless of what those results are, I've already said, I've changed my tune, and I think I want to spend some more time here now. And for example, I mean, when I finished up here, I'm we're going over
Gonna
to
go
mum
see
and
him.
dad's to go and spend some
Yeah.
time with them and see them, because I know I go away in a couple of weeks' time, and I want to spend as much time as I can with them now.
Yeah.
And that goes with everyone. It's not just my parents. It's all of my friends. I just don't. It's so easy. Life often, we let life get in the way. We get. I'm one of the worst offenders, and I think that's where my husband's been so great. He grounds me, calms me
Mm.
down. I am one of these personalities that is always up. When I'm at an event, I run on fumes, but I love it because I love what I'm doing. But
Mm.
I think with personalities like that, when they're up, they're up, they're up, they're up. But when they come crashing down, my God, do they crash down hard? And
Mm.
that's me. And there are often times when, I wake up in the morning. I mean, this probably happens once in a blue moon, but I wake up and I just I don't want to face the day. I just want to stay in bed
Wow.
and let that day go, because
Yeah.
it's just, for whatever reason, it's just all too much. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think we often need to talk about this. I don't think we talk about it. It's still taboo, because as athletes, we're supposed to always be in control, always know what we're doing, determined, strong,
Always
um,
motivated.
always motivated. Everything always falls into place, and it's garbage. It's not like that at all.
Yeah.
If anything, I think we're the reverse, in that we set ourselves, and we think others set such high expectations for us, that often these expectations are virtually impossible. And it's
Mm.
what we put on ourselves. And just every now and again, I just, that alarm will go off, and I'll say, you know what, I want a day out, and I'll turn my phone off. I'll turn the internet off, and I won't leave the house. I'll stay in bed. I'll have a sleep in, and then I just let that day go. And that's all I need. And then I reset, and I realize, come on, Belinda, you're being silly. Just get on. But life's
Yeah.
not that tough. It's, nothing crazy is happening here. Just get on. But yeah, I think sometimes you see yourself as a failure if you have those feelings and you go through those moments in life, but it's not a failure. I think you're being strong if you can recognize that sometimes, you know what, life just doesn't feel that great.
Mm.
Um, but going back to, because I have a bad habit, Seth, of going off or down a pathway.
No, you're
But
fine.
with my parents, yeah, I think literally this is the first year I really started to realize that they're not going to be around forever, and that I need to make every day and every second count.
Mm. Are you a spiritual person?
It defines spiritual. I mean, I'm not really that religious, but spiritual, yes, I sometimes find myself when I'm in one of these low moments, or I'm not feeling so great about life or about myself or about where I am, I do talk to myself. Am I talking to me, or am I talking to something else that I think is out there? I don't know. But there are definitely times when I will talk to myself, or I will talk to someone when I'm asking them what the hell is going on right now. Why am I not in control? Why do I
Mm.
feel like this? So yeah, I think in a way I am a spiritual person. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't do that much spiritual work, so to speak. I think maybe
Mm.
as I've gotten older, I do a little bit more. I think as you get older, you realize that life's not so black and white. It's every
Mm.
color under the sun.
Yeah. It's
I
great.
think when I was a young girl in my mid to late 20s, late 20s was when I really started to become like, triathlon was my sole focus. There was nothing else. I just wanted to be the best triathlete in the world. I wanted to win as many races as I could possibly win. And it was
Hmm.
black and white. I got up every morning, I trained, and I went to races, and I raced, and that was my life. And it was that simple. And it wasn't until probably my 40s when I was still racing. I was still racing then, but then obviously I wasn't doing as well as I used to. I wasn't winning races. In fact, I wasn't even making it onto the podium. You
Mm.
start to realize that they're the bigger picture, and that there was more
Yeah.
out there than just
Mm.
winning or podiuming at races. But it took
Yeah.
me a long time. I reckon I was a bit of a late bloomer when it came to that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting you share that because so I grew up in I wouldn't say like super religious home, but parents were religious. They were first
Mm.
generation Christian, and what was interesting is going through that lifestyle. And so my parents being first generation was my dad before that. His grandmother converted him to Christianity, and he had been like
Uh-huh.
on the streets doing the drugs thing, selling them, and mom was just kind of neither here nor there. But dad really like pushed that, and he battled like with this I don't know, inner struggle or whatever you want to call it for a long time to like kind of leave some of those bad habits behind and try to make a better life. And to give him a lot of credit, like he came from way worse of a situation than I did and was able to create a life and opportunities that unfortunately he's not here to see. But the fact that he gave those to me and my sisters is just like hats off to him. It's really great to have that. But all that to say, when I got into triathlon, I was actually shocked with a lot of the parallels and similarities between organized religion and the religion of triathlon. Because it's like, we're not going to church, we're going to these races. That's our community. You have the
same deal.
dogmatic, super fundamentalist, like, I get my training in no matter what, rah, rah, rah. And they kind of run over people. And then you have the other people who are like, I'm here for the experience and the joy of, they have no idea. They don't care about the time. They're just here to love people and to be loved on. And humans are so habitually similar in so many different ways. Like we're all looking for to fulfill our life, and it's some of these basic needs. It's like community, food, and shelter. Like what else do you really need? And triathlon offers a lot of that, and that discipline too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That routine, that discipline. It's such a. I mean, I think about what triathlon as a sport has given me. And all of my friends are triathletes or were triathletes or still are triathletes. My parents love the sport dearly. I met my husband through the sport of triathlon. So everything I'm in, the house I'm living in now was because of the sport of triathlon. I literally owe everything to the sport and what it's given me. And I think maybe that's why my job as pro liaison is my way of giving back to something that has given me so much. And I think even though there are days when I'm not going to sit here and say I love my job every day. That would be fibbing. There are days when I do get frustrated, and then there are days where I get incredibly frustrated with professional athletes and the way that they conduct themselves. But generally speaking, 99% of the time, I love what I do, and I receive emails from pro athletes. And my husband rolls his eyes because he gets sick of me reading them out. But so many beautiful athletes that I deal with on a daily basis that are just living the dream and living the dream that I had once. And I love the more I can get to do that and to experience what I did, then my job is done. I've succeeded.
Given your experience with being a professional triathlete, even the world before that, to what you do now with Challenge and the Phoenix, what's it called? Phoenix
Futures? Phoenix Futures camps, yep.
Yeah. Given those things in consideration for all of your experience, what do you think is the most important thing you've ever done in your life?
Oh my gosh, the most important thing. That's hard. That's probably the trickiest question I've ever been asked in my life. It's ridiculous.
I love it. Take all the time you need.
Thing I've done. Yeah. Well, you know what? I don't think there's one. I don't think I can name just one thing that's been the most important. I think what's most important to me is that I continue working with my arms open and offering my experience and my knowledge to those that want it. I have a young girl that I'm going to be talking to next week, and she's a young girl that lives in Thailand. She was on one of our Phoenix Futures camps in Phuket a couple of years ago. Absolutely, when you meet a young person that's wise beyond their young years. I think she was only 15 at this camp. She's a couple of years older now, obviously. But you meet these, and I always, at every camp, I meet at least one or two, and I have to keep asking them what their age is because they're so insanely wise for their young years. I'm like, how can you be this wise when you've only been on the planet for 15 years? It's crazy. But I think when you meet the athletes that we get at these Phoenix camps, they are so incredibly special. Tim Ford, who runs the camps, he does these videos when they're choosing the young athletes to come on these camps. They fill in quite a significant application form, but then they have these online interviews, and so the final pick comes down to Tim. So we know we are getting some pretty special young athletes, but they're special, and then you've got this next group up above, and I look at this, and I remember saying to this young girl, you are a special girl. She has this empathy for people that she's around, or the athletes that she's around. And I watched her on camp, and I watched her giving help to all of these other athletes that she'd never met before. That most of these athletes don't know each other. they meet for the first time and they bond almost immediately. And to see her, you know, a young girl that should be nervous herself, but there she is helping others. And I remember saying to her at the end of camp, I said, "You've got what it takes. You're an incredibly special young human." And I said, "You know what? Even if you don't end up making it in your sport, you are going to make it in life because you have got something incredibly special,
Mm.
which I've only seen in a handful of young people." And I'm talking to her next week because she's obviously at a point where she needs someone to talk to for her next steps, for her next moves. She's not in a situation where she doesn't know what she wants or whether she's good enough. So we are going to have a talk next week, and I think that's probably the best thing that the most important thing that I can do, that I have done in the past, that I will continue to do, is make time. Make time for those people that need it, whether they're my friends who are having issues at home, or whether they're these young athletes that I meet that are trying to, navigate the way of life and the next steps of becoming an athlete, or whatever they decide to do, is just taking the time. We're all busy. We're all tired. That's life these days. But I think as long as I keep giving myself, keep giving myself to these young athletes, to these people that need me, and giving them the time that they deserve, and listening. I think it's the biggest thing that goes on now is people don't listen anymore. It's really
Mm.
difficult because even when we're in the moment and we're talking to people, half the time your brain's not there. Half the time you're thinking about,
Yeah, you're
what am I cooking for
floating
dinner
off.
tonight? Oh, I've got to remember to send that email. Oh, I forgot to ring my doctor. Whatever. We're all guilty of it. So I think the most important thing that I've ever done and will continue to do is to give my time and to truly give uh, my full being, 100%, hearing the lot, not
Mm.
to be present and to actually listen.
Mm. So I'm a huge believer. I'm glad you shared that because I'm a huge believer in that. Just from my background, like there's the concept that God created the world or existence with words, and that we have that same breath in words. And like whether you're religious or not, the concept of the words that we speak have the ability to give life or literally to give death.
Absolutely.
Like on the
Absolutely.
biological level, because when you feel bad, cortisol levels go up. Like you can go to the science. But when you shared that about, taking her aside and telling her, whether you're making the sport or not, like you're going somewhere. When I turn around and look at my past, I can pinpoint, I could sit down and write probably a journal full of a couple pages of key people who have sat me down, whether intentionally or not intentionally. And just like these little small things, like one of my professors in college said, this is at a time when I really wanted to make something of myself and really started to take opportunity and really try to grasp it for the first time, because I realized like I had a lot of opportunity after living overseas for a year. I just realized, wow, like I have so much to be thankful for. Anyway, this guy sat me down when I got back and he's like, "Hey, like you're going to big places." And he wasn't like super descriptive or anything, but that has stuck with me. And these
Doesn't
other
matter. Hmm.
pieces of just affirmations, when I turn around, it's like if my past is just a big open warehouse that's black, like there's these people holding these candles, and like it's those moments that have defined how I view myself, and then like how I want to like impact others. So the fact that you're sharing that and you do that with these kids, like I would agree. Like that is the most important thing. It's not how big of a company did we make. It's like
No,
those small moments that we offer to someone that become a point of belief and a moment of motivation or a source of just gratitude and love as they go through life. Like it's those things that uh, during World War II, I'm sure that people pulled out of like that one memory or that one thought of that person that they loved or whatever. And like it's those little small things that fuel hope and allow you to go through an
I,
Ironman. Like it's
I,
just, yeah.
I totally agree. And I've even found myself over the last couple of years, which I never used to do, is even when I'm walking in the street. And I remember the other day I was walking up the street, I just got a coffee, and these two older women, and when I say older, they were just meaning they were just older than me, and they were dressed so beautifully. And normally, I would just walk straight past them. I wouldn't say a word. I got no reason to say anything to them, but I just felt compelled. I just had to pull them up and just say, "You know what, you ladies look spectacular." And you could just see the look on her face. I'm not saying that my words changed their life. They were probably already in a good place, but I wish as humans that we do that a little bit more often. It's like when you get great service. I never used to, when you get sent, you go to a restaurant, you get great service, and then you'll get can you do this Google review or you whatever. And I used to delete. But now I find myself taking the time. If I'm really happy with somewhere and I get something like this, then I will jump online and I will say, you know what? I just had one of the best experiences of my life. It was fantastic. Service was incredible. And yes, it takes a little bit of time, but not only does it make you feel good for doing something nice, you know that it's going to make their day and they're going to feel appreciated. So in my eyes, it's a win-win for everyone. And I just wish
Mm,
sometimes we'd take a little bit more time to just slow down and appreciate things and to tell, and to give people compliments when they deserve them. It takes 2 seconds and you walk away feeling good about yourself and they walk away feeling amazing. And
mm,
you just, yeah, I think with all the rubbish that, I turn on the news, I refuse to turn on news anymore because it's
mm.
just so horrendous these days. And I just look at all the things that are going on around the world and I just think, oh my God, I don't want to live in a perfect world. Perfect's boring. I'm not after perfection, but I just want to
Mhm.
live in a world that is nice and nice to each other. And I think if we could all just be a little bit nicer, if everyone just went out and was a little bit nicer to someone every day, could you imagine the change in the world? It would be, it'd be perfect. No, it wouldn't be perfect. It'd be a beautiful place.
Yeah, no, I would. I went to this really amazing, for one of my friends sent me to this 3-day retreat where we had probably 40, 50 people from all over the world, different walks of life, from a girl who had been through like literally 60 foster homes growing up to somebody who was a very successful CEO of a very large company. And the whole point of the weekend was to get people to open up and share. And what I realized was even the people who I kind of, we have these judgments we kind of cast on people, we're
Of
profiling them.
course. Yeah. Hmm.
After 3 days of getting to know these people's stories, you can't help but not fall in love with people.
Exactly.
When you take even
Uh-huh.
15 seconds to really just look at someone in the eye, like there's even science that shows the longer you look at someone in the eye, your body, you start releasing these chemicals, which are like love chemicals, to where you start to create a bond with that person. So it's like if you do that and you hear them for what they have gone through and what they want, like no one is coming out of the womb wanting to kill the world and just drown
No.
people and like nobody. But because of the lack of, like you're saying, the lack of kindness, the lack of love, you can turn into a monster. But even the hardest person on this earth, I think, that has a soft core that can be reached if they're
Yeah.
able to like have that love like bestowed upon them.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's incredible. And just listening to people's stories, uh, a little while ago, I had to do some voiceovers for a documentary on, the triathlete Els Visser. And for most people, she's obviously from the Netherlands, and she's a very good triathlete, long distance triathlete. And her story is remarkable. Where she almost, she was in a shipwreck in
Mm.
Bali, out on the off Bali, sorry, they were going
Indonesian Ocean.
scuba diving, yeah, and boat overturned, and people died. It was horrific, and she basically swam for her life.
Mm.
And because this documentary, which Red Bull is bringing out, goes through it from beginning to end, and I can't tell. I cried maybe 3 or 4 times watching this documentary because it was just so unbelievable to learn step by step what Els and her friend had been through, had gone through, and to look at where Els is now today as an athlete
Mm.
and as doctor. I mean, what she's achieved is mind blowing. And I'd heard about her story before. I knew about the shipwreck, blah blah. But to actually go through it piece by piece, almost hour by hour, what she went through, and to see how she's come out of it the other side, and it gave me a whole new. I mean, I already respected and loved Els, but then now I put her on a pedestal and think, oh my
Mm.
gosh, this woman is incredible.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. It's because I actually sat down and took the time to learn her story. I mean, if I sat down, say, with Lionel Sanders and went through his full story of when he started, when he was young, when he went through university, how he became a triathlete, same deal. I mean,
Mm.
it's remarkable. And these are two standout stories, obviously, of people that have overcome or defied death, so to
Yeah.
speak. But everyone's got a story, and no one's done it easy. There's no one out there that's got to where they are now without having to climb mountains or have things that have taken them out for a while. But yeah, you're right. I think again, it comes back to actually sitting down and truly listening to a human story, to a person's story, and
Yeah.
you're right. The bonds that you create so quickly as humans, it's quite remarkable.
Yeah, it is remarkable. How has your definition for, and I'm not looking for any particular like in sport or anything, but just in general, to be successful, how has that definition changed for you since you came into adulthood to where you stand today?
Yeah, it definitely. I'd like to say that the success I've had has given me an incredible amount of confidence, but I also think that I went into the sport with probably more confidence than what a normal human would, because at the end of the day, I came in as an age group athlete with no inclination of turning pro, not realizing that I was actually quite talented. It was someone else that told me, and I thought, oh, well, I've got nothing to lose. And I think I was able to have that attitude because my parents had brought me up to be a confident young woman where there was no such word as impossible. Impossible just did not exist in my household growing up. Everything was possible. My mum and dad taught me that it was only impossible if you thought it would be if you thought it was impossible, and that just, as she said, and that's just not the way I bring up my daughters. So both my sister and I are not scared to try anything. It doesn't matter what it is, we'll try. And I think on the flip side of that, I'm also not scared of failure. I will say that probably since I've been in my early 50s, I don't like to fail. So I do find myself playing it a little safer. And what I mean by that is, obviously, I'm sure you've heard of Hyrox. The whole world's heard
Who
of Hyrox.
hasn't?
It's a big deal. Who hasn't?
Yeah.
Every retired triathlete I know is doing Hyrox. My gym's doing Hyrox. My friends are doing Hyrox. And I train for Hyrox practically every day because my gym does it. But have I competed in it? And the answer is no. And if I'm to be brutally honest, why haven't I? Because I've had ample opportunity. We've had it here in Brisbane, and we've had it in Sydney. We've got Hyroxes everywhere in Australia. It may be that because I have been so successful, and I have done well in my sport and everything that I've ever done. Am I a little bit scared that maybe I won't be successful at this because of my age? I don't know, and I've never used my age as an excuse to not trying something. Like if you see me in the gym, I'll try whatever they ask me to try. But for some reason, I won't line up on a Hyrox start line, and I'm not sure I 100% know the answer. Is it because I'm scared that I don't have it anymore, or that I'm not going to be competitive? I don't want to be run of the mill. It's not the way that my mum and dad brought me up. They brought me up to be the best I can be, and that doesn't mean necessarily mean winning. It just means to be the best that you can possibly be. And I'm probably being very confusing.
No, you're fine.
Right now,
and
I'm
it.
like
Nope. It's
but
really good.
Sometimes the thoughts that come into a human's head don't always need to make sense, and sometimes they contradict each other. And I think there are times, particularly when it comes to these Hyrox, that I do contradict myself because I say I'm not scared. I've got confidence, which I think I do. I'm confident. I know I can speak in front of a crowd. It doesn't matter if I've never met anyone before. I could speak in front of 10,000 people, and it wouldn't make me nervous. But lining up on another start line in a new sport, when I haven't for so long, I mean, I haven't raced since 2015. I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a little bit of me that thinks maybe I might not be competitive, and I'm not sure I can handle it.
Well, Belinda, I think it's time to sign up and push yourself a little bit.
I've just put it on the line now. Oh gosh. Yeah, but it's an interesting concept, isn't it? Because I know I'm competitive, and I know even when I do gym classes and we set little goals or little semi competitions, and I still give it my everything. So I know that competitive spirit's always there. I don't think that dies just when you retire. And I know when I go to all my classes, I never go to class and just phone it in. I go to class and I give 100% every single time. I don't just go there and go through the motions. So I know I've still got great work ethic. I don't miss sessions. I don't sleep in that often. And I give 100%. So I've got no reason to believe really why I couldn't be competitive, but I don't know. I'm a little bit scared.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I'm glad that you're sharing that. It's really interesting to me because, like I said, I'm 32. I'll be 33 this year. have been doing the sport, what, 4.5, 5 years now.
Right.
And
Yep.
for me, growing up, like I placed a lot of probably too much stock in like this is going to sound kind of funny, but like I grew up and my mom hung out with a lot of younger women, and a lot of them were like telling me all the time, like, oh, you have beautiful eyelashes and you're good looking and all this stuff. And so I grew up thinking that I am relatively good looking, and there's some positives to that and there's some negatives to that.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I had a lot of stock and value placed in this, like, oh, I'm going to be handsome when I get older and I'm going to be athletic when I get older. And as I start to get older now, I wonder, because I realize like beauty is fleeting. It only lasts for so
Hmm.
long, right? And athletics only can last for so long. Like you can always be athletic, but we all taper off, and then we come to the
Absolutely.
sunset
Absolutely. Yeah.
of our lives, and with the ability. And I've thought a lot about like what is it going to look like as I start to get older. And luckily, I don't think I have to worry about feeling that for quite a while. Um, but I'm curious, like for you, like you are ahead of me a
Hmm.
bit. Like you
Yeah.
are. It don't want to sound weird, but like you are a beautiful woman, and you've been a professional athlete. So like, how has that been for you as you've gotten older and you've come to this place where you're like, well, and now I'm a little afraid to do Hyrox because I don't know if I can be
Yes,
athletic
exactly.
like
Because I don't
those
know if I've got
things.
it anymore. And oh, you've nailed it. It's true. And I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say I love getting old. I hate it. I mean, think about what I do for a living. All of my friends, I'm the oldest of all of my friends. So we have this awesome group here. We call ourselves the Noosa Run Babes. And Beth McKenzie's in this group. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Jamie L. Jacobs, who's married to Pete Jacobs, she's in this group. And all of these magnificent women. I think there's like 10 of us, and we run every Sunday. We're very, very close. We see each other nearly every day because we're at some training session together. We go away together. We're all going away this weekend down to the Gold Coast to see Fisher, who is a DJ. Um, I already know I'm going to be one of the oldest ones at this bloody festival because, at 54, still going to be
Yeah.
hanging out with 20-year-olds.
I
And,
love
with
it. I
my
love it.
job, I'm hanging out with young athletes all the time. I mean, Milan Agnew, who's I'm going to be staying with me at the championship. She's 24, 25. And yes, she's a professional athlete, but she's a friend, a good friend. And all of these athletes are young, and I'd be lying if I said to you that I when I'm around them, I act their age. I am 25, 26 years of age in my head. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't think of myself when I'm around all these people. I never think of myself as the oldest or 54. But then, there are times when I'm at home or when I'm recovering from a session or getting up the next morning, walking downstairs for breakfast, and I'm like, oh my God, I really am 54 because this is really hurting me. And I hate it. I don't want to get old. And when I say that, I know I'm going to get old as in 54, 55, 56. I don't mind that part. I just don't want to get old. So I'm never going
Mm-hmm.
to let it define me. I'm never going to let it stop me doing something apart from Hyrox. But I never use it.
Yeah.
I never use it as an excuse. I still, I, I was talking today because I went to another concert. I went and saw Fred again when he came to the Gold Coast last year, and I went with my husband, and we got there, and it was just the two of us, and I honestly, everyone around us was either teenagers or in their early 20s. And it was the first time I looked around and Justin and I started laughing, like, look at this, look at the two old grandma and grandpa with all these youngsters. But we had the best time of our life because I think these youngsters look at us and think, how cool are they? It's obvious they're a lot older than us, but they're here dancing and having the best time. And we met this young group, and there was one guy, and he was the most beautiful young boy. He was about 6'8", giant. And he said to my husband, he goes, you're tiny, you want to get up on my shoulders, you'll get a better view. So my husband jumped up on this guy's shoulders that he'd never met before and spent like half an hour up on this guy's shoulders. And I'm like down there, this is the best. So,
So fun.
I think, yeah, it definitely, there are times when I wouldn't go as far as saying depressed, but I definitely get sad because life just seems to go so quickly, and
Mm.
I still enjoy it so much, and there's still so much I want to do that I just wish we could put it on hold for 1 year, just hold it for a year. Um, Funny story, last year, every year I celebrate my birthday at Laguna Phuket Triathlon. It's one of my favorite places in the world. I think this year will be my 25th time, something absurd, going to Phuket. I raced it 12 times, and I've been working the event ever since, and I absolutely love it. It's in November, end of the year. people that put the race on are spectacular. And I always been celebrating my birthday there for forever, what seems like forever. And they treat me like royalty because they all know it's my birthday. And I remember going there last year and it was my birthday and I'm telling everyone, oh my God, I'm turning 55. I'm 55. This is crazy. This is halfway to 60. I cannot even comprehend this.
Yeah.
And then everyone's looking and they said, oh, were you born in 1969? I thought you were born in 1970. I said, yeah, I'm 1970. They said, well, you're not turning 55. You're 54. And the relief. Like, I can't tell. I almost started crying. The relief. I'm only 54. I'm still closer to 50 than I am to 60. Yes. But now, of course, this year's come around and I'm going to Phuket, of course, again this year, and I'll be celebrating my birthday again. But this time it's back to, I'm 55. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I've
Age is
had
a
a whole
mindset,
year to
right?
get used to it. Oh, absolutely. And
Yeah.
I don't think, you ask anyone that works with me, I'm never going to act whatever I'm supposed to act. I am who I am. And I've got two Cocker Spaniels, my two babies, and they're both 11. And it's quite incredible the difference in their behaviour. We've got one that's slightly older. She's 2 months older than the other. Her name's Mackie. And she's still very fit dog for her age, but she acts like an 11-year-old. The other one, Millie, who is apparently, she's my dog, everyone knows. She's 11 and she'll be turning 12 at the end of this year. And she's a puppy. She acts like a puppy. She looks
Wow.
like a puppy. She still plays with the toys. Still pulls the lead with me with a mouth.
Yeah.
And I
Yank on
just
it.
said, yep, this is my dog because this is me. This is always going to be me.
Yeah, that's amazing. Oh man. So let me ask you one final question. You obviously spend a lot of time with younger athletes and especially ones that are coming up in the sport. So you have the opportunity to give them guidance and just share your experiences, which I think is so cool. But when they hear your story, what do you want them to feel? Because I think feeling is what really at the core is at the core of motivation. When someone can give you a story, you take away what you felt from that, or you watch something or listen to something, and that's what fuels us. So when people hear your story, especially the younger generation, what do you want them to feel?
Just never be afraid of trying. One thing I often say to professional athletes, and this goes across everything, I think it's especially with sponsors, with asking races for pro assistance. I always say, hey, always ask. Always ask, always reach for the stars, because the worst thing someone can say to you is no. And what does no do? No doesn't kill you. It doesn't stop you doing what you want to do. And the one thing I want from these athletes is to don't ever put a lid or a stopper on what you can do and what you can achieve. So keep reaching, keep trying, and never say, oh, well, I'm not even going to bother asking because I know the answer is going to be no. Always ask. You always ask. And, I've got athletes now that email me, not for work reasons, not to get into races, not to ask what sort of pro package I can offer them for a race, etc. They ask for my opinion. For example, if they're changing coaches or managers, what do I think? Who would I go with? Should I stay with the same one I've got? Should I move on? Can I do this on my own? And I love getting those emails and I love getting those messages. I love having those phone calls, because I think the one thing that I've got with these athletes is their respect, and they know that I'm going to give them a truthful answer and that I have their best interests at heart. So when I give information or when I give advice to these athletes, they know that it's for them and them alone, and that I truly mean what I say. And yeah, the one bit of advice from my story is I never thought I was going to be a professional athlete. I thought I was going to be a teacher for the rest of my life. So don't ever settle, is what I'm going to say, because I could have easily said, you know what, I'm just quite happy to do triathlon to lose a few kilos, which is what I originally did it for, because I didn't like what I saw when I looked in the mirror,
Yeah.
and realized I was quite good at it, but even then wasn't convinced. But to see where I started and where my mindset was then, and to see where I finished, at the end of I think I had almost a 20-year career, I think 18-year career or something ridiculous, and won way more titles than I'd ever given myself a chance to win. I think it was 15 Ironman titles in the end. So, and there's no way, if you had have asked me back when I first started, when I decided to start racing professionally, that would be my life. So every triathlete now, I think the best story I can give, or the best advice, is just to reach for the stars and then some, and don't ever be willing to just settle
Mm,
and always
beautiful. Well,
ask. Always ask.
yeah, always
Yes.
never be afraid of the no. Yeah, that's a very good
No.
entrepreneurial advice, honestly. Like I think of that, those the stories that I've heard, and it's usually you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Like
Yep.
that old adage. It's a
Always.
beautiful truth.
And
Yeah.
and I think the thing is, as humans, we don't like feeling like we've been let down, or no's. People don't like to hear the word no. We don't. It's a horrible word, no. But I think as athletes, you learn very quickly that no doesn't. It's not as intense as we think it is. I still even now I go into bat for athletes all the time when I'll just give an example. If we've got rooms to give to athletes or pro packages, even though I know I've used up all the pro packages that a particular race will give me, if I've got athletes still asking that I think are worthy, I will still, even though I know there's no packages left, I will still go to the race director or to the boss of whoever's is in charge, and I'll still ask for more, probably knowing they're going to say no, but I'll still ask
Yeah.
because you never know. I mean, I've been in situations when they've said, you know what, yep, we'll give you 2 more packages, then I can go back to the athletes. But if that athlete hadn't asked, I wouldn't have bothered doing it. So I just think, always ask, because the worst thing someone can say is no, but you're no worse off than where you were if you didn't ask at all. So I think for all up and coming pro athletes, it's worth it. So yeah. And this is one of the most important things we teach these young athletes at these Phoenix camps, is we teach them not just that, but we teach them what it takes to be a professional athlete. Because I think for most athletes, they think they just have to train well and race well, and there's not much more to it. But as well as I do, particularly in this day and age with social media and technology, there's so much more to it, and the demands are so much more than what they were back when I was racing. And so I think these camps, I wish I could have been on one of these camps when I was just turning pro, because we teach them every facet of what it takes to be a professional in your chosen sport. It's brilliant. I love it.
Very well articulated, and it has been a joy and an honor getting to know you. I always love going into these interviews because I try to do a little bit of research, but not too much to where I can start to get to know the person. And so again, human,
yep.
I always have a little bit of an idea of like who I think they're going to be like, but you've exceeded expectations. I love talking to you. I would love to have you on again in the future, but thank you so much for taking the time to share from your heart. Yeah.
And, it's just lovely. Obviously, I've done podcasts before, but it's basically talking about triathlon and triathlon alone, racing, which, is great. We all love that too, but it's just, it's a lot closer to my heart to talk about the heavier hitting stuff these days. I mean, maybe because I'm a little older and wiser, so I
love it too.
I get so much out of this sort of conversation.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank
and
you.
I know listeners will too as well. I'm in this game for the long haul. So hopefully we'll continue to reach more and more people. But
Awesome.
I think these conversations are the ones that really make the difference and make some long lasting impact. So thank you so much for taking the time.
No, thank you, darling. Thank you.
Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart to Belinda for coming on, sharing time with me to share about her life and the things that she's going through, the things that she has experienced, and just the values and character traits that she holds. It's really special to me to be able to learn about people and get to know them on this podcast. So I just want to leave you with the last few words that she was sharing at the end, and that is, don't be afraid to ask, don't put a cap on yourself, and do not settle. Remember that you miss 100% of the shots that you do not take. If you made it to this point in the podcast, thank you so much for being here. Check out the show notes if you want to sign up for our newsletter, and any of the sponsor information is down there. Make sure to check that out. If you're on YouTube, if you could like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, continues to help grow the podcast on that platform. And if you are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, if you could drop a review, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.